Hi, this is Hussain coming to you live and direct from London, the United Kingdom. And I'm so excited today because I have a very, very special guest joining me. And, this is probably the biggest guest I've had on the show so far, and probably will be the biggest guest I'll have. So just to give you a bit of background, he went from being $40,000 in debt to building 3 8-figure companies. So he has generated $30 million in revenue by the time he reached the age of 30. He's won multiple ClickFunnels and all of these other awards. He's been involved with multiple businesses, has won multiple awards. And if you don't know who he is, you must have been living under a rock. So without further ado, Shakir Hussain, welcome to the show.
Man, how's it going? So I just want to make sure the connection is all good. Yeah, we're good to go. Yeah, I appreciate this, man. I remember you 10 years ago as one of the first, back then, this was, gosh, people didn't even know what internet marketing was, but so I appreciate coming on, and I just want to give you as much value as possible in the next 30 to 45 minutes. So whatever is on your mind, let's get down on it.
Yeah, no, you mentioned this 10-year thing, and I think it's time for a slight confession, and I hope it will be useful for people watching this, because 10, 11 years ago when we first connected, we were both getting started in this make money online place, and and then we've been on different paths, and you have gone on to generate $30 million. I have not. So, a 10-year review, if you want to call it that, that would be quite awesome to see what you have done and what you have learned from your mentors and you've applied, that I can apply for the next 10 years, but also the viewers can apply moving forward. So why don't we start off with your story? How did you get into this online marketing place?
Yes. So I grew up in East London. We didn't have a huge amount of money, but my parents gave me a lot of love. I come from a family of 3 brothers, 3 sisters. We grew up in a government housing, what they call a council flat. We had like 3 bedrooms, 13 people lived there. It was wild and crazy growing up. And I always just had this entrepreneurial flair. I always wanted to make money, build businesses. I always wanted to do different things, like versus getting a job, getting a degree, going to university, working for 20, 30 years, God bless my parents, like my parents wanted me to do. And so when I was around 21, I think I was 20 or 21 years old, I'd gone to this live event. It was a seminar being held in the UK. And that was my path. And that was my opening to seeing a whole different world that existed, right? So for me, I didn't know that, you could make $1 million a year or £1 million a year. Just because I thought making 100 grand a year was a lot of money. And it is to a lot of people. And so for me, when I first started on the internet, looking around different opportunities, I was trying everything. I tried MLM, network marketing, affiliate marketing. I tried all of it. And, when I was 21, I finally got into this whole internet marketing, digital marketing scene. And I took it seriously because before that, I used to sell in Sunday market in a place called Brick Lane. I used to go and sell stuff since I was 14, 15 years old. So I developed a lot of confidence when it came to selling, persuading, influencing people from a young age. And that's primarily just because I saw my dad do business deals and all of this stuff. And so then probably from 15 to 16, 17, 18, I was selling on the internet, on eBay. I was importing things from China. I did basically everything that most people do. When you're young, you're stupid, you don't know what you're doing. I was selling GHD straighteners. I was selling, at the time I used to also be super overweight, right? So I used to go and buy really large clothes that were discounted designer brands. And then I would go on eBay and then I would flog it. And, that's kind of how I started making probably around 1,000, 2,000, maybe 3,000 a month when I was 18, 19 years old. But I never took it seriously until I went to a live event. And when we went to the live event, I started meeting people that were no different than me. And these guys were, making $1 million, $10 million a year. And then I remember meeting this Asian guy who was literally the only Asian guy amongst all these other English and American dudes. And this guy was making as much as $100,000 a day. Now you have to realize, right? Like I grew up in East London. My parents said, go to school, go to college, go to university, get a degree, get a job. You know, making 50, 60 grand a year was a lot of money. And so I go to this event and I'm like, what the heck is this? Like I couldn't even comprehend how someone could make that much money. But here's what I did comprehend. I don't know what he's doing. It looks legit. It is legit because he's teaching people at seminars. I'm gonna go do that. Literally the next day I dropped out of university. I was studying finance, money, and banking. I was planning to get into investment banking. So I dropped out of university in my final year. And then I go into this path where I literally travel. I mean, I didn't have much money, but I literally started traveling the world to go and meet these mentors. So the first guy I met, you know, I remember him telling me that he lived in Ilford, right? And I was like, wow, that's like, you're an East London boy, you know, and he was Indian, but he could speak my mother tongue. He could speak Bengali, right? Like he could speak Sylheti, basically, like, you know, the language that I speak. And I was like, who are you, right? Like, I can't even comprehend this. So long story short, I dropped out of university and then I literally just like forget everything, you know, forget my friends. And I used to live with my family back then. And I would literally just, I bought a £280 refurbished laptop from eBay and I just started, you know, I focused, I worked super hard. The first few years was super tough and I started making money selling digital products and services. So that year, I think I made like $15,000. The next year I made $120,000. And I had gone to an event in Las Vegas. And I remember like my friends and family were like, why are you going to Las Vegas? You know, I was like 21 or 22 years old or something. And I borrowed money from my friend. I went to Las Vegas and I remember going to this hotel called Paris Hotel. Have you ever been to Las Vegas?
No, not yet. Not to the States yet, but maybe in a couple of months.
Okay. Yeah. So I traveled to the US for many, many years and whatnot. And so, you know, I would go to Las Vegas and when I went to Las Vegas, I remember very clearly like meeting all of these people. And I'm actually going to show you something. This is crazy. But give me a second. Because I actually have these tags. If you can see here, all right, there you go. Where's the date? There you go. November 19, 2009. Yeah. November 19, 2009. That's the day I went to, or a few days before that, I had gone to Las Vegas. And this is literally 10 years old now, right? This is 10 years old. So I go to this event and I meet a lot of people. And what I found out from a lot of these people were that they were making a lot of money. And that was number one. And number two, they were no different than me, right? Like they didn't have magical skills or they didn't have like, you know, 4 hands or something ridiculous, right? They didn't have, people don't even have 4 hands, but you get the point, right? Like they didn't have a lot of these things. And as I was growing up, I used to do construction work with my dad, right? Because my dad owned a construction company. And they would go in and basically, you know, tear down houses and build houses and extend houses and whatever. And when I was in Las Vegas, I met this guy he must have been in his 60s, couldn't speak proper English. And he used to also be a construction guy, right? So I kind of just resonated with him for whatever reason. And I asked him, you know, like how much money is he making? And, you know, he tells me he's making like more than $50,000 or $60,000 a month. And like, it was at that moment, I just said to myself, like, tell me what I need to do and I'm going to go do it. Like, just tell me. And that's what led me to the path. So I came back to London. I hired my cousin and a school friend. So 2 people. I literally moved from my house. I didn't really move, but across my parents' house was my mother's friend's house. And she had one of those back garden sheds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it it's so crazy, but she had converted this back garden shed into a bedroom, like a 2-bedroom or something, right? So she could rent it out, but that's illegal. And then the council basically said she's not allowed to do that, right? You know, she's just an auntie, right? She didn't know what she was doing. So now she has this place and she can't do anything with it, but she can rent it out to me for £50 a month. And so that became my first office with 2 guys. I didn't have much money to even feed these guys. So my mom would make curry and rice, and these guys would eat it. And so anyway, that's how I started. And within 3 years, I made my first $1 million. So I went from 120K, 275K, then to $1.2 million. I was probably around 23, 24 years old. And then by the time I was 26, I made my first $10 million. And then, you know, all praise to God, I done $30 million, which is about maybe 25 million pounds, before I turned 30. And so, you know, that's kind of the journey. And in that time, I've been able to travel around the world a few times. So I also lived in different countries for like a solid few years at a time. Singapore, everywhere basically, America, all over. And so now I'm back in London for a bit, and yeah, that's kind of the business in terms of like the journey. If you want specific lessons, I'll go into specific lessons. Again, like you can ask me whatever. I'm an open book. So
I know you're an open book, and I really appreciate you joining me, because I know you're very busy and you charge like $4,000 or something for an hour worth of your time. So I'm not paying him $4,000, but you know, I want to make sure I get value for money here. So, you know, when you started off, because I remember 11 years ago, right? I mean, I was creating information products. You went into essentially a network marketing company that had a funnel and everything set up. And you were telling me you were selling high ticket financial products. I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Anyhow, you went into this company and you literally took it over, right? You became like, you got an award, Carbon Copy Pro or whatever it was called, right?
Yeah, it was called Carbon Copy Pro.
When did you get your first breakthrough with your opportunity?
You know, my breakthrough came so before I used to just go out and chase opportunities, right? Like I tried to do anything that I could like make money. I did construction work, and then I was like, I should just take over my dad's company. I tried anything and everything under the sun. And see, most things work. Like most business models actually work. It's the person that doesn't work, right? So I realized it's my psychology. I need to fix my psychology and how I behave, how I act, how I behave, and how I produce. And so I started doing a lot of work on my mindset, and I came to realize a couple of realizations. One of them was like I could sell low ticket clickbank products, you know, $50, $100 digital products, or I can go and market $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 programs. You might think, but you know, who's gonna go buy this? There's plenty of people. Like there's, you know, tens of millions of millionaires. Like, you know, I think it's something like a few thousand millionaires are created like every single week or so, something crazy. Like the market is there for if you want to sell high ticket, right? And so I used to try and do low ticket marketing, sell cheap stuff. And I just realized like, I didn't like it. I didn't like working with broke people. It's just like way too hard because, you know, you have to go and buy traffic from Facebook, from YouTube, from LinkedIn, whatever. And when you get traffic, which is people coming into your business, if you can't convert them, then you don't make money, right? Like if you boil it down, the way you make money on the internet is you have traffic, and then you have something called funnels, right? Traffic, which is people, and then funnels is essentially your shop, your product, your service, your gadget, your gizmo, whatever, potion, lotion, totion, whatever you're selling, right? So if you can get more people coming into your store, your website, your funnels, then you can make more money. Now, the big mistake people make is that they don't have a sales funnel which has high ticket programs, or they don't understand how to get traffic. So for me, what I realized in the earliest days was, you know, I could find someone else's funnel or someone else's products and services, and I can market that, but I need to get good at traffic. And so I got really good at traffic generation, specifically something called email marketing, where you send out emails. You know, and at the time, because I was like super overweight, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I just wanted to sit behind the computer, make a lot of money. And so I learned and I realized that email marketing was like was the thing. So I started building a subscriber list. And a subscriber list is essentially, people coming in, they're giving your name and email address. And that's what I do right now. And, over the last 10 years, I've built a big list of, a lot of people that have subscribed to my newsletter. And I remember, the first few times when I started building my list, people would say, hey, Shakir Hussain, are you related to Saddam Hussein? Your name sounds like you're a terrorist, all sorts of nonsense, right? And I had a lot of haters and all this nonsense that you experience when you start becoming successful, so to speak. And so, after I passed through those stages, you just kind of evolve. And the more I evolve personally, the more that my results show.
Yeah,
I hope that makes sense, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm listening. I'm soaking you all up, right? Because you say you've got an email list, and I've been on that email list for 10 years, and I know you send an email every day, right? I'm not going to say I read everything, but I have read enough to know enough. And you've got about 500,000 people on that list, right? That you've built over 10
years. In total, it's like way more than a million subscribers that I've got generated. I also bought lots of different businesses, so I acquired all of their subscribers and customers and all of that. But overall, like more than 500,000 people have come in their details, and from that, I've generated tens of thousands of paying customers. And all that good
no,
stuff.
you've broken the system down to essentially two parts: traffic and funnels, which is a separate company. So forget about that. On the traffic side of things, why do you think most people who are marketing a business opportunity or their agency or any business, why do you think they struggle to get traffic? Because for some people, it seems to come automatically.
Yeah, so for me, I've never ever had an issue with traffic. Like for me, traffic is the easiest thing in the world because you go to Instagram and then there's all sorts of people. You go to Facebook, traffic is not the issue. The issue is what do you do with someone that comes into your funnel? So for example, and your funnel is essentially your website, your e-commerce store, whatever you're trying to sell, your product. Just think of it like your shop, right? So the people exist, right? It's like water is everywhere, right? Like I live actually on the water, so that's what I'm saying, right? Like the water is everywhere. Same way, traffic is everywhere. Traffic is essentially people. Your job is to create a magnet, so to speak, that pulls in the right people. And see, most people focus on they focus too much on their product, trying to make this product, perfect, or they focus too much on how do you get customers. But what they need to focus on is what we refer to as something called the sales funnels, right? And the sales funnels is essentially the process that attracts the customer, but then is able to convert that customer into convert that visitor, into a paying customer, right? So for example, right now, if this is my shop, instead of focusing just on the product itself, I want to focus on when someone comes in, what is the experience that they're going through? And these series of steps is what we refer to as a sales funnel, right? Or a website. And so why do most people fail is because they don't understand it. Business is not emotion. It's not, hocus pocus. It's basically numbers. And when I was 21 years old, I was very fortunate. Some of my mentors, these guys were multimillionaires. And, I was a young broke kid. So naturally, whatever they said, I soaked it all in. And one of the things that they shared with me was how you can go and acquire customers and understanding CPA, lifetime value, all of that, right? So I'll give you an example. I was probably 21, 22 years old, and I'm in New York, right? And, I'm selling this product. It was like a $10,000 product. Excuse me. It was a $10,000 product, but on the front end, it was like a $50 program, right? So you get someone in for $50, and then you have a few upsells, and that's how you charge like $10,000, $20,000. And I remember listening to these guys, and they were talking how they were spending $150 to $200 to get that $150 customer, right? And so for me, I was I remember walking into the conversation, and I was like, hey guys, what are you guys talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. And I flew all the way from London, and I was the youngest kid in the room. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And I remember the two guys, Michael and Andrew, those are the names. They literally sat me down and they broke this down. And it was like a very simple thing that made my mind go, oh, like I understand that. How much can I spend to get a customer to acquire? We call it CPA, cost per acquisition. And then how much is that customer going to be able to spend? And that's what we refer to as a lifetime value. So if you can literally just understand that, like how much can you spend to get a customer and how much is that customer worth to you? Well, let's just say in my business, a customer is worth, let's just say on the low end, $10,000, right? $10,000. Now, if I go to Facebook and I spend $50, $100, $500, $1,000 to get one customer, that means on $10,000 value, I could make 9 times my money. And that, just understanding that basic math, right? And I failed in math and in school heavily, and I don't have a degree or anything, right? And so once I understood that became the foundation. And I got 3 questions that I always tell myself, right? Like, how much is my lifetime value customer for any of my products and services or my businesses? Then I ask myself, what's the cost per acquisition? How much can I go and spend to acquire that customer? And then the last one I ask is, where is the customer? Right? The last one is like, okay, which platform are they hanging out on? Right? Like by almost never ever do I like focus on the traffic. I focus on the who, the customer, what their pain, frustration, needs are. And then I figure out, okay, what are they spending? So sometimes you're going to see someone spending, you can sell a book for $10, but you can also sell a book packaged up with a course for $1,000, all the way up to $10,000, right? And so those were my big breakthroughs when I was getting started. And if you can understand that, then you can and you start developing what I call scalable income skills, right? And what a scalable income skill is basically when you develop a skill that the marketplace pays you a lot of money for. So for example, email marketing, building sales funnels, social media marketing, YouTube marketing, LinkedIn, copywriting, webinar marketing, being able to speak on videos, being able to speak on stage in front of people. These are scalable income skills, right? So one, what that means is it's scalable, right? Scalable means like it doesn't rely on you doing one-on-one. Because when you start trading time for money, one of the reasons why I charge $4,000 an hour for my time is I just don't want anyone to buy it, right? Like I just had a guy, who paid me I think $3,000 or $4,000, and then I was on the phone and I gave him tremendous value, but the fulfillment level for me is very low, right? Because I'm trading time for money. It's like being in a job. And so I don't want to just consult, because I can consult my own business for an hour or 2 and I could probably, make an extra couple of $100,000 or an extra few million. So I don't really do consulting, and I do have like large consulting packages that are 100K and all of that. But once I started developing, understanding these questions, how much is my customer worth to me? What's the lifetime value? Where can I go and acquire them? And then I also understood, what are the skills that's required? And so if you are listening to this, right, and you are here and you're trying to get there, the gap is what's holding you back, right? And we can say, there's fears and emotions and mindset, but when you kind of rip all of that stuff apart, what's really stopping you from your goals is a lack of skill acquisition, right? And skill acquisition can be you acquiring the skills yourself, or you go and hire someone that has the skills. So for example, I have a team that does YouTube ads, Facebook ads. I have a team that does social media marketing for me. And I don't necessarily have to do any of those things because I can go and hire out those skills. Now, what happens if you don't have the money or the time or the energy? Then really you have to develop those skills. And most people, they focus on acquiring the wrong skills, right? They think that making a picture looking pretty on Instagram or posting 5 times a day on social media, that's what's going to get them sales and money. That's not necessarily how it works. Being able to learn high scalable income skills, which are in demand, which are rare, which are hard to acquire. But if you do acquire them, it's going to really take you to the next level. So my first scalable income skill was email marketing, right? I started doing email marketing and I made my first 100K. And then I started learning about phone sales, picking up the phone and closing people for 5K, 10K, 20K. And then I made 275K. And then I was like, okay, cool. I know these two skills. I don't want to do any more phone sales because there's no leverage in it. Okay, let me go and hire someone. So I hired one guy. And then the next year, my income went to $1.2 million. And then I, went to my mentor and I was like, how do I double my month? How do I double my income? So I went from $1.2 million to 2.4 million because I started doing something called webinars. And then I was like, wow, webinars are awesome. Like I can just present once and sell a $10,000 program and I'm good, right? Like my last webinar, I don't know how advanced your audience is, but I'm guessing like the marketers and stuff.
They'll know what a webinar is.
Okay, they know what webinars are, yeah? So one of my last webinars, I sold a $10,000 package and I got 120 customers at 10 grand, right? That was like a $1.2 million webinar, $1.2 million webinar, right? And like, I remember after that, I was thinking to myself, whoa, like, holy smokes, like this is so insane. Like I didn't even do the slides. Like I just presented the offer, but I was like, damn, I just worked for like 3 hours and that's crazy. Like who makes $1.2 million in a few hours? So obviously I had built a list, I had built authority and positioning and credibility and whatnot. And then I took that webinar and I automated it and we did $3 million from that webinar. And when I break down the hours that I put in, how much each hour is worth, it's like my time is worth like 50 grand an hour. And I'm like, so if my time is worth 50 grand an hour, that's why I don't really do, I mean, I have group coaching programs and all of that, but I tend not to do one-on-one work because it's just not the maximum use of my time. So I got really good at doing webinars. After I did around $2.4 million, the next year I did $3.6 million. And what I started doing is I started hiring more people. So I started hiring a sales guy, an appointment setter, something like that, right? After that, the next year I did, I think it was 6.5 million. And what I started doing is I started getting really good at building teams. And so I started building teams, hiring people. So hiring like, I always had an assistant from day one, but I always like tried to hire my weakness. So I focused on my strength, which is only like 3 things: sales and marketing, coaching, speaking, and basically coming up with new ideas, right? Like I don't know much about anything else. And I just tend to stay very focused on what you call my genius zone. I focus on, I like to wear black t-shirts because I don't want to make decisions, right? Like I am always wearing a black t-shirt. I don't, I have like same Hugo Boss jeans. I like to eat the same thing over and over again. I don't watch TV. I just tend to just stay focused on my goals. Anything that distracts me, drains me, takes my energy, my focus away. Like I don't have any space for that in my life. And I've made those rules for myself for a long time ago. And so I just stick with those rules. And anyway, so I did 6.5 mil. The next year I did close to 8 million. And I had built a team of around 55 people, 35 full-time. And then the others were like on contract, part-time, whatever. And in that time, and then it went up and whatnot. And so, yeah, before I turned 30, I did more than 30 million in sales of digital products, courses, coaching, consulting, all of that. Scaled the business to $1 million a month, which was I was 28 when I had my first $1 million month. So,
yeah.
And I was in Saudi Arabia with my best friend and my parents. So It was like the ultimate dream come true.
Some prayer got answered.
Yeah, all the prayers got answered. Yeah. So I learned some valuable lessons throughout that. One of them is that there's always a shorter path for you to hit your goals. And either you can make mistakes or you can go and find mentors that can show you the path, right? Like I've spent a stupid amount. I've actually spent more than $500,000 in my own education, right? Like, give you an example. This is one of my mentors, a guy called Dan Sullivan. I remember when I paid him like 25K, 35K, I think, 25, 35K. And I spent like one day with him. right? And I had to fly over to Toronto. And what he does is he teaches you thinking frameworks, right? He teaches you how to think. He teaches you how to think better and perform better at a very high level. Now, if I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I just paid this guy, he's 73 years old, I just, paid him 25K, he's going to teach me how to think, my dad would probably give me a slap, okay? However, this guy has been coaching entrepreneurs for the last four decades, so 40 years. If I learn one thing from him, it will pay many multiples. So that's kind of how I look at things. I look at how do I save time? How do I save energy, conserve my energy? How can I buy results? And the fastest way you do that is through paid access, right? Like whatever you're trying to go into, you want to become an influencer, you want to become, whatever, a highly paid coach, consultant, there's always a group of people that have the results. And you must start training yourself to go and invest in yourself so that you can go and get accountability, support, guidance, mentorship, and you got to put your ego aside, right? Like when I was starting out, I was like, I had this big ego. And then one of my mentors, I remember he was on stage and he was saying like, how many people know people with big egos and small bank accounts? And I was like, what? That's me. Because I didn't have much money, but I was like, I know all of this. This is BS, right? And so that's what trained me to keep an open mind. Most people, they don't achieve any results or they don't grow to a place that they're proud of. Forget comparing. They don't grow to a place that they're proud of is because, there's something in their mind that holds them back, whether it's fear, it's skepticism, it's negative behaviors, they self-sabotage themselves, they get complacent. For me, I'm just getting started. Like the last 10 years, this was just practice. This was just practice. When we have another conversation in 10 years time, that's why I want to be like, okay, cool. I'm going somewhere in life.
I mean, I know we've got a couple of minutes left with you. So one final question for you really is you've touched upon building authority and credibility, and that is something that has helped you quite a lot. Someone who's starting out, right? Someone who's watching this and they want to make a change in career transition or whatever, how can they start building their authority by taking a couple of baby steps, if you like?
Yeah. So, we can, by the way, I just checked my time. We can go for another 15, 20 minutes because that's cool. 15, 20 minutes, 3:30. So another 21 minutes. When you are starting off, one of the fastest, easiest ways to build credibility is go and interview someone else. So just like what you're doing here. Number two is go and be around the people that have the results. And sometimes you have to pay them. You have to join their masterminds. Sometimes you have to go and invest and make uncomfortable decisions, but be okay with that because outside your comfort zone is where all the growth lies. Okay. Another thing is once you start getting good at your skill, all right, remember what I said, you want to go and be good at skill acquisition. Once you get really good at skill acquisition, acquiring new skills, reading the books, going to the seminars, learning off mentors, once you get really good at this and you can start getting results, your credibility will become a magnifier, right? Like when I got featured on Forbes, when I was, I think 28, that year I did like $8 million, just shy of $8 million. And once I got featured on Forbes, it really magnified my credibility and my authority. And so, most people, they're trying to get over here, but they haven't planned out their first 3 to 5 moves. And that's what you want to get good at. And the way you engineer and you create authority is, nothing beats cold, hard results. Results that you get for yourself or results that you get for other clients, right? So that's what's helped me charge a lot of money for my services is because I get results for myself. Client comes in, they pay us a lot of money. They invest in themselves, and then we're able to help them grow their business to new heights.
Mm-hmm. And you've been involved with quite a few different opportunities, and you've pivoted over, you've had quite a few challenges as well. Now, every time you obviously go into any opportunity, you have competitors, people who are starting out, say with their network marketing company or any opportunity right now. They will need to kind of differentiate themselves to stand out. what are some of the tactics that someone could use to stand out from the competition and draw the people to, I suppose, purchase with them rather than their competitor?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really do network marketing now, but in my younger days, I certainly did online network marketing. This isn't talking to friends and family like most people do. This is setting up online marketing systems that would bring us lots of customers. And one of the ways that you differentiate yourself is by putting yourself out there with a unique story that's around you, right? Your story is what will make you different than everyone else. You know, there's a reason when I started this presentation, I shared with you my story, because some people that are going to listen to this and, you know, start following me or whatever, they will resonate with a story. So your story is what creates a brand, and the story is what also differentiates you. And when you start sharing your strength and your weaknesses, your experience, your expertise, your culture, your values, when you start adding all of these things in, now you start creating a unique identity for yourself. And when you lead with that, it's like no one can compete with you. Does that make sense? So for example, it's like the ClickFunnels awards, right? Like, you know, there's so many people that have won these awards, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone's got one of these fancy awards. This is what they look like, actually. This is what they look like over here, right? Not my watch is this over here, okay? And, you know, I was like, okay, how do I differentiate myself from everyone else? And I was like, well, I've got not one, but I got 2 8-figure ones, right? And so I also got them before the age of 30. Okay, I'm just going to brand myself as the leading funnels expert under 30. Okay, so, you know, I help businesses, you know, automate their customer getting journey through sales funnels. And so it's all these small little things that you can weave into your marketing. And when you can do that, you stand out from everyone else. One of the best pieces of advice that I was given when I was 21 years old is look at what the masses are doing and then ask yourself, how can you do something that's opposite to everyone else? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, how can you do so? For me, I don't really pay attention to most people, actually. You know, I actually don't see anyone's ads or anything much because I have like newsfeed blocker. So I don't really see anyone's Facebook updates or whatever. On my YouTube, I have like a YouTube blocker, so I don't see anyone's YouTube videos. Because I like to live in my own bubble, right? Like I actually live in my own world. And so I'm not distracted by everyone's shiny objects. So I come up, you know, I figure out, okay, where do I want to get to? I figure out who's already been there, right? And then I reverse engineer, what do I need to do on a yearly basis, on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, down to the hour, right? Like what do I need to do? And then who do I need to become? That's kind of how I present that. I think that's what I would say. Other than, you know, how you get good at authority is by understanding and learning mental triggers of human psychology and being able to understand where your prospect is, meeting them where they're at, being able to help them in a way that they look at you and they say, oh my gosh, forget everyone. He or she is the only person that can help me. When you can make someone feel magical in that sense, where they feel like, where have you been all my life? Right? Like that's what your prospects need to feel. So in my marketing, you know, or when I do webinars and stuff, people will often say, like, where have you been? Like, why didn't I come across you before? Like, you're the guy. And it doesn't matter if there's like 1,000 other funnel builders or coaches or consultants. So what you do is you craft your own blue ocean. And when you craft your own blue ocean and you stay consistent, this is one of the biggest keys, right? Like you got to stay consistent. If you see my emails, like you said, you know, you've been getting my emails for 10 years. I'm staying on top of mind. You know what I mean? This morning I had a lady, she bought one of my programs. It's like a 20 grand program. And guess what? She's been following me for like a decade, right? Like the first time I did a seminar in Singapore. We had like 900 people. The first time ever she was sitting there in that seminar, and she's been following me for the last decade, right? And so why does she keep buying? There's so many other people out there, but she has that authority. She looks at me as an authority when it comes to this area of sales funnels, of building online businesses. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
Right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And no, and you practice what you preach, because obviously if anybody visits your profile, and I'm going to tag you to this, and they'll all be absorbing your profile. You've been pictured with Richard Branson and quite a few other authorities. You've paid a lot of money to Tony Robbins as well as one of your mentors. So I suppose, final question to you before we wrap up. You've got this
Yeah,
fight.
you take lots of pictures, by the way. For some reason, people like to see you with famous people and whatever. But I get a thrill out of it because sometimes they're my business heroes and stuff. Yeah. Sorry, what was your
It's all good. No, you've got this challenge going on, the funnels challenge. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Someone signs up for your...
Yeah. So a lot of the times, basically, here's how it came to be. Over the last 10 years, I've just focused mainly on really high ticket products and services, right? And those usually start from 5K, 10K, 25K. They're usually information, advisory, consulting, coaching products. And one of my friends and mentors, he just did a launch, and let's just say he did really good. He did really, really good, many millions basically in a single month. And so he broke down his whole campaign and he shared it with the mastermind. And that's why I belong to a mastermind, right? Like I said to you guys. And so in the mastermind, I saw what he was doing. So I went and launched the challenge. And I was so hesitant. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a low ticket product. What am I doing? But it's worked so well that I ran the same campaign now 3 times, right? So like when something works, instead of thinking, oh, you just got lucky, or like your people, you're gonna piss people off, you're gonna annoy people, like double down on what works, right? So for me, that challenge worked, and I obviously made a nice chunk of change on the back end, right? I don't know how deep you want me to talk about it, right? Like,
Go for it. Go for
yeah,
it.
so I spent like $6 grand, made back more than 200K profits. Got 200 front-end customers. Main traffic source was Facebook, email marketing, just maybe 10% off Instagram, mainly email marketing and Facebook. So I did that campaign. So now my next plan is, how do I get 1,000 people in that challenge so I can have a $1 million week, basically.
And I'm sure you'll get there. I'm sure you'll get there. Now, on that note, Shakir, thank you very much for your time. Let's not wait another 10 years to do one of these, right? I did 10 years ago, but thank you very much for being generous with your time. And, if you are watching this interview and you want to find out what Shakir does and how you can learn about funnels and sales and traffic, like he's talked about here, find his profile. So, Shakir, I'll speak to you soon.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Have a good one, you guys.